They say you can't outrun your past, but I never imagined mine would catch up in a hail of gunfire during a routine traffic stop, shattering the peace I'd built for my pregnant wife. The last thing I remember thinking before the world went sideways was how perfect the light was. That syrupy, golden hour light that makes even the most boring suburban street look like a movie set. I was 2 blocks from home, driving the speed limit, dreaming of the spicy Thai takeout Sarah had texted me about. Life was simple, predictable. After 3 tours in Afghanistan, simple and predictable was all I ever wanted. My old life, the one of special forces and high-stakes ops, was a ghost I kept locked in a box. Now, I was Marcus, husband to the most incredible woman on earth, and soon to be father. The car seat was already installed in the back. Then I saw the lights. Not the gentle gold of the sunset, but the harsh, strobing blue and red that every black man in America learns to dread. My stomach tightened into a knot. I checked my speedometer. Exactly 25 miles per hour. I signaled, pulled over smoothly to the curb, and killed the engine. I rolled down all 4 windows before the officer was even out of his car. This was the drill, the script. You play your part perfectly so you get to go home. I place my hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, my military ID and my veteran's health card sitting right next to my license and registration in the glove box. The officer who approached my window was young, with a fresh buzz cut, and a jaw that looked like it was permanently clenched. His name tag read, Miller. He tapped on the glass, even though the window was all the way down. "License and registration," he said, his voice flat, his eyes scanning the interior of my car. Not looking at me, but through me, looking for a threat. "Yes, sir, officer," I said, keeping my voice even and calm. The way they trained us to speak to hostile combatants. De-escalate. "My registration and my license are in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them slowly with my right hand. Is that okay?" He just stared, his hand resting on the butt of his sidearm. "Just get them." I moved like I was handling a bomb, every motion deliberate, telegraphing my intent. I opened the glove box, my fingers finding the small stack of cards. As I pulled them out, my military ID slipped from the bundle and fell to the floor mat. "Sir, my military ID just fell," I said, not moving a muscle. "I'm leaving it there for now. Here's my license and registration." I handed them over. Miller snatched them, his eyes flicking from the cards to my face. He saw the veteran designation on my license. A flicker of something crossed his face. Contempt? Annoyance? "You think that gets you a pass?" he sneered. "A pass for what, officer?" I wasn't speeding. "Broken tail light," he grunted, tapping the rear of my car with his flashlight. I'd checked the lights this morning. They were fine. But this wasn't about a tail light. It was about control. "Okay," I said, nodding slowly. "I'll be sure to get that fixed right away." "What branch?" he asked, his tone shifting into an interrogation. "Army, sir." "Yeah? Big shot, huh? See some action?" He was baiting me. I could feel the invisible tripwire in the conversation. "I serve my country, sir," I said simply. "You being a smartass, soldier?" He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You think you're better than me?" This was it. The script was failing. The actor across from me was going off-book. My training kicked in, overriding the fear. I analyzed his posture, the tension in his shoulders, the way his knuckles were white on his gun. He was a powder keg looking for a spark. "No, sir," I said, keeping my hands visible on the wheel. "I just want to go home to my pregnant wife." That was the mistake. Mentioning Sarah. It made it personal. It showed him I had something to lose. His eyes narrowed. "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, for a broken taillight." "Now!" he barked, his hand unsnapping the holster. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden silence of the evening. I took a deep breath. Okay. New script. Follow the new instructions. Survive. I unbuckled my seatbelt with my left hand, then opened the door. As I swung my legs out, my foot brushed against the ID card on the floor. Instinctively, I bent slightly to pick it up. "Gun!" Miller screamed. I never saw it coming. There was no logic, no reason. Just his raw, panicked fear. I didn't have a gun. I was picking up a piece of plastic with my face on it. But as reality was already written, I saw the flash from the corner of my eye. I heard the deafening crack, a sound that ripped the peaceful evening to shreds. It was louder than I remembered from the battlefield, more intimate. A searing, white-hot pain exploded in my side, a monstrous punch that threw me back against the car seat. My breath left me in a ragged gasp. The smell of cordite filled my nostrils, acrid and familiar. I slumped against the door frame, my vision tunneling. The world was turning to static. Miller was yelling something, his voice distant and distorted, like a radio station fading out. Through the ringing in my ears, I could hear another sound growing louder, a rhythmic chopping sound from above. It wasn't a police chopper. It was heavier, deeper, the distinctive whoomp 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 of a Black Hawk. As my consciousness began to fray, a new voice cut through the chaos, amplified and impossibly clear, booming down from the sky. It wasn't addressing me, it was addressing the cop. "Officer Miller, stand down. On the authority of the Department of Defense, stand down now. Asset is compromised. I repeat, asset is compromised. We have the situation." The downdraft from the Black Hawk hit the street like a physical blow, a hurricane of dust and discarded fast food wrappers. Officer Miller, who had been standing over me with his gun still smoking, was now frozen, a statue of disbelief with his face tilted toward the sky. The booming voice seemed to strip the authority right off his uniform, leaving him looking like a boy playing dress-up. Two figures in black tactical gear descended from the helicopter on fast ropes, landing with a practiced silence that was more terrifying than any shout. They moved with the fluid economy of wolves. My world was a pinhole of light and a symphony of pain. One of the figures, his face obscured by a helmet and NVG mount, was suddenly kneeling beside me. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't offer comfort. He just pressed a hand packed with combat gauze against the bleeding hole in my side. The pressure was excruciating, but it was a grounding pain, pulling me back from the edge of the void. "Vitals are dropping," he said, his voice a calm, metallic rasp through his comms. "GSW, left abdomen, entry, no exit. We need to package him now. Package him, not save him, not help him. I was cargo, a broken piece of equipment." The second soldier had Miller covered, his M4 rifle leveled at the cop's chest. Miller had his hands half raised, his pistol now dangling limply at his side. He looked like he was trying to process an alien invasion. Who are you?" Miller stammered. "This is my scene." The soldier didn't even glance at him. A third man, this one not in tactical gear, but in a crisp, dark suit, rappelled down and strode toward Miller with an air of absolute command. He moved like he owned the very air they were breathing. "Officer Miller," the man in the suit said, his voice dangerously quiet, but cutting through the rotor wash. "You have just shot a Tier 1 asset critical to national security. You have interfered with a multi-agency surveillance operation. You have compromised a mission that has been in play for 18 months. So with all due respect, this was never your scene. Now hand my man your weapon and your badge, and go sit in your car until someone comes to tell you how the rest of your life is going to be ruined." My consciousness was flickering, a failing light bulb. The medic was working on me, his movements efficient and impersonal. He slapped a pressure dressing over the wound, his fingers finding my pulse at my neck. I could hear him rattling off numbers. My blood pressure, my heart rate, my entire existence reduced to a data stream. As they prepared a lightweight stretcher, my mind, untethered by shock and blood loss, drifted. It snagged on a memory, a dust-choked night in the Kandahar province, my commander, Colonel Vance, giving the mission brief. "This one's off the books, Ghost," he'd said, his eyes hard as granite. "The target is a ghost himself. They call him the Alchemist. He's not just an enemy, he's a concept. Make him disappear. No trace. This one has to be perfect." We thought it was. We thought we had buried that operation and everyone involved so deep they'd never see the sun again. I'd buried that part of myself right along with it. My call sign, Ghost, was supposed to be a memory. The medics were lifting me. The world tilted violently. I saw the streetlights spinning above me, then the dark belly of the Black Hawk. I saw Officer Miller, pale and shaking, being disarmed. I saw the man in the suit speaking quietly into his wrist. The last thing I saw before they slid me into the helicopter was my own car, a few feet away. The door was still open. On the passenger floor mat, glowing under the harsh military lights, was the military ID card I'd tried to pick up, my face smiling from another lifetime. Then darkness swallowed everything. When I woke up, the pain was a dull, manageable throb. The rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor was the only sound. I wasn't in a hospital. There were no windows, no flowers, no get-well cards. The room was stark white, the ceiling a grid of acoustic tiles. I was lying on a bed that was more of a medical slab, hooked up to a dozen machines I didn't recognize. An IV line snaked into my arm, feeding me a clear liquid. I tried to sit up, but a hand gently pushed me back down. "Easy, Marcus," a voice said. A voice I hadn't heard in 5 years. A voice I thought I'd only ever hear again in nightmares. I blinked, my vision clearing. Standing over me, his face etched with the same weary authority I remembered, was Colonel Vance. He wasn't wearing a uniform anymore, just a tailored gray suit that looked as out of place on him as it did on the man at the scene. "Colonel?" I rasped, my throat dry. "What the hell is going on?" "My wife, Sarah." "Your wife is fine," he said, his expression unreadable. "She's been told you were in a car accident and you're in surgery at a private facility. A cover story. One of many we'll need now." "Cover story for what?" "A trigger-happy cop shot me." Vance's eyes, chips of ice, locked onto mine. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that made the hair on my arms stand up. "That cop was the least of your problems. He wasn't the only one watching you tonight, Marcus. The alchemist is in the country. He knows you're alive. And he knows about your wife." The name hit me like a second bullet. The alchemist. A phantom. A master facilitator of terror whose network we had supposedly dismantled. My team had been sent to eliminate him and his entire operation. We'd reported mission success. We'd come home, convinced we'd cut the head off the snake. But it seemed the snake had grown a new head, and it was looking for me. "That's impossible," I croaked, trying to push myself up again. "We confirmed the kill. I saw the body." "You saw what he wanted you to see," Vance said, his face grim. "A decoy. The real alchemist slipped through the net. He spent the last 5 years rebuilding, planning his revenge, and you, Ghost, are at the top of his list. You and what's left of your team." What was left of my team? There were only 2 of us who made it back from that last op. Me and my spotter, Diaz. "The traffic stop," I said, the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. "The broken taillight was a lie. Miller he was a pawn." "Worse, he was the audition," Vance corrected me. "The Alchemist's people have been probing your routine for months. They needed to see how you'd react under pressure, to confirm you were still the man they remembered. That traffic stop was engineered. They used a low-level contact in the local police department, feeding Miller a bullshit story about a car matching the description of an armed suspect. They just wanted to rattle your cage. But Miller got scared. He went off script. His incompetence is the only reason you're alive. It forced our hand. We had to extract you." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a random act of police brutality. It was a calculated move in a chess game I didn't even know I was playing. They'd targeted me, used the system against me, and nearly succeeded. My simple and predictable life was an illusion, a carefully constructed stage, and the curtains had just been ripped down. "Why was I being watched by you?" I demanded, anger starting to burn through the fog of pain and medication. "If you knew he was here, why wasn't I warned?" "Because you were the bait," Vance said, his voice devoid of apology. "We've been hunting him too. We learned he was coming for you, so we set up a perimeter. We shadowed you, your wife, your entire life. We were waiting for him to make his move. We just didn't expect him to make it like this." The betrayal was a physical thing, a knot twisting in my gut. They had used me, my wife, my unborn child. They had all been pieces on Vance's board. While I was picking out paint for the nursery, they were treating my family as acceptable risks. "So what now?" I asked, my voice flat. You stick me in a safe house for the rest of my life? The alchemist won't stop, Vance said, shaking his head. He's patient. He's meticulous. He'll never stop hunting you or your family. There's only one way to end this. We need you to help us finish the job we started 5 years ago. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. We need the ghost back. I looked down at the bandages taped to my side, at the IV line pumping fluid into my veins. The ghost was dead. I had killed him myself, buried him under a mountain of civilian clothes and domestic comforts. But Vance was right. As long as the alchemist was out there, Marcus, the husband and father, would never truly be safe. To protect the man I had become, I had to resurrect the man I had been. What about the cop? Miller? I asked. He's being debriefed at a black site, Vance said dismissively. He'll sign a dozen national security NDAs, get a quiet dismissal for procedural violations, and spend the rest of his life wondering what he stumbled into. He's a loose end. We're tying him off. There was no justice in it, just the cold calculus of covert operations. The world would see the story Vance wanted them to see. A vet in a car crash, a cop quietly fired. The truth would remain buried, known only to us. And Sarah? I whispered, the name catching in my throat. She's secure. She's with Diaz at a secondary location. He got the signal as soon as the chopper was wheels up. My old spotter, always watching my six even after all these years. She's safe, Marcus, but she won't be, not really, until this is over. I closed my eyes. The image of the golden hour light, the thought of Thai takeout, the feel of Sarah's hand in mine, it all felt like a scene from someone else's life. A life I had to earn back. The only way out was through. The path to my future lay through the darkest parts of my past. Okay, I said, my voice steady, the cold resolve of the ghost settling over me like a shroud. Get me a map, get me a rifle, and tell me everything you know. Let's go hunting. Vance allowed himself a small, grim smile. He knew he had his weapon back. As for me, I knew this wasn't just about national security anymore. This wasn't for a flag or a mission brief. This was for the quiet, predictable life I'd almost lost. It was for Sarah, and for the child I hadn't even met yet. The alchemist had tried to take everything from me. He didn't know he had just given me a reason to become the most dangerous man on the planet. And this time, there would be no mistakes. This time, the ghost would be real,